I like the sound of freedom. I like the sound of restoring democracy. But what are the downsides? And here we must be honest. There is the worry about Scotland, about the possibility that the English-only leave vote could lead to the breakup of the union. There is the Putin factor. We don't want to do anything to encourage more shirtless swaggering from the Russian leader, not the Middle East, not anywhere. And then there is the whole geostrategic anxiety. Britain is a great nation, a global force for good. It is surely a boon for the world and for Europe that she should intimately engage in the EU. Lastly, this is a market on our doorstep, ready for future exploitation by British firms. The membership fee seems rather small for all that access. Why are we so determined to turn our back on it? Shouldn't our policy be like our policy on cake, pro having it and pro eating it, pro Europe and pro rest of the world? So when I read that, but then I read the very vivid description you gave of that night when you were trying to make your decision in your book, Unleashed, and you seemed torn. But the guy that went out and campaigned didn't seem torn. There was a real lack of nuance in the campaign, but there's such a huge amount of nuance in both the moment you were making the decision and the articles you wrote about that decision.
There are arguments both ways, and I say it in the book, and it's certainly true that as I said just now, the case for staying is I think one about not seeming to be hostile, not seeming to be detached. But I had to decide, because the being in the EU isn't like just being in a club where the rules don't change. It's a project to create a United States of Europe with a single currency, with a single parliament, and so on. And I thought that we weren't ever going to get the chance again to have national democratic independence. And as I said, so I wrote, so that article you just quoted was a sort of pastiche of a counter argument, which I wrote for myself as an exercise after I'd already written the piece to come out. And I wanted to set them side by side and to think.
But that's nuanced, but the campaign wasn't nuanced.
But if you read the other article, you'll see the points that I came down in favor of. Mm-hmm. And that was about having full national independence and be able to do things your own way. And the trouble with staying in the EU was that it meant that we were going to become less and less democratic. And in the end, you've got to be able to, as a politician, you've got to be able to answer the question, who puts you in authority over me and how can I remove you from office? And the problem with the EU is there's no way they can answer that question, but because they're not democratic.